Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, April 23rd, 2020.
I'm Michael Lagella.
I'm Russ Cohen, and we've got Pierre LaRouche online here, who I got to tell you, maybe the best set of hands I ever saw growing up. I mean, just made 50 goals look easy. Did it a couple times, had a lot of goals. Great NHL career. Pierre, hey, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pierre. We really appreciate it. It's I was looking I remember you as a player when I was a kid, and I'm looking back at your resume. Oh my gosh, you put up some points, my friend.
Yeah, but great players to play with. That's what happens then.
That's for sure. I mean, one of the more interesting things we saw is that you actually put up 50 goals on two different teams. You put up 50 goals with the Canadiens and the Penguins, and almost 50 with the Rangers as well. I don't think that's ever been done. That's really exciting. I guess to start with, let's just talk about getting drafted in the NHL. You had also set an unbelievable record in the queue that's only with points that's only been surpassed, I think, by Mario.
Well, he didn't get the assist, though. He
didn't get the assist. I saw that.
No, he was thinking about beating
I like that.
Gold record, so he forgot.
But listen, my friend, you're good when your record, when in Wikipedia it says your records were broken by either Mario or Gretzky. Like the records that that's amazing. So what was it like going into Pittsburgh as a young kid?
Well, in those days we didn't have like the draft like they have. We were playing golf, and I got a call to go in the clubhouse, and Mark Boileau at the time was the coach for the Penguins. Said, we just drafted you and looking forward to play with us. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go finish my round, and I'll see you at training camp.
And you know what? You had a better rookie year than Eric Vale. How? And again, I was only 11, so I wasn't voting then. If I was voting then, how did they not vote for you? You had more assists, the same amount of goals. I don't know how you lost.
Well, I kind of like, the way it goes, but the players voted me as the rookie of the year. So that was very important for me. So it goes like that. Sometimes the vote, people see different things, but it's all good. Eric is a good guy. I've known him for a long time, and he was deserving. So was Danny Gare. So
Danny Gare was terrific.
Yeah.
Pierre, I looking at your career, and I did a little research before we had you on the show. You had 3.25 seasons in Pittsburgh, and according to some of the things I read, they had tried to trade you to the Cleveland Barons, and then you somehow blocked that and were traded to the Canadiens. We've talked on this webcast about francophone players wanting to go to Montreal because of the pressure. Like Vinny Lecavalier, for years, we said, he was going to go to Montreal, and he didn't want to do it. He ended up signing in Philadelphia as a free agent. You seem to have embraced going to Montreal because you chose to go there. How was that experience for you?
Well, the Cleveland thing, I never heard about that before. So if that was the case, I had a no trade, no minor contract at the time. So I had to agree where I went, and Cleveland was never brought up. And probably if there was been brought up, I would have said no. No, not because of that. Just, you don't want to go to a place that's struggling, and it's difficult enough to play in the NHL without losing all the time. So Montreal, you grew up watching the Canadiens. I mean, how can you not say no to that?
That's what I think.
I played with some great players and won a couple of cups because of the team I was on. So, and all in all, and it's demanding, but so what? That's part of the game. It's demanding. Nothing wrong being demanding.
No, absolutely. And I think that, honestly, I love players that embrace it. I love the players who embrace Montreal. I mean, I grew up Montreal was my second team growing up as a kid. We went there every summer. I mean, it's hard not to, when you're around the Montreal, just the city of Montreal, it's hard not to fall in love with the Canadiens, hockey in general. The passion the fans have, it's unmatched.
Yeah. After I left Montreal, we used to have 50 to 60 reporters at every practice.
Yeah.
After the game, it was like, the dressing room, you can hardly move. So you leave Montreal, and all of a sudden you're like, wow. It's only in Montreal they do all this stuff. In New York, they just came for the games. Very rare.
Yeah.
That they came to practice, but they do interviews, but mostly games.
Yeah.
No, speaking about New York, Pierre, you played with Herb Brooks. You were part of the Smurfs. I watched them intently growing up and into my teens. But you were like the lead Smurf. back then, what was it like when you guys got that nickname? Because you were in a rough, tough league, and there were a lot of small players exceeding, doing really well under Brooks' system.
Well, Herb was way ahead of his time. You look at the game now, the way the defensemen keep the puck, give it a chance to the forward to change, even the defensemen. So that was her mentality. Why give them the puck when we have it? It's hard to have it.
Right.
You're going to throw it in. Now you got to chase it again. And, we had a lot of toughness mentally. We were okay. We did well.
Pierre, when you went to the Canadians, the 2 seasons that you won the Cup, you were under Scotty Bowman and Peter Mahovlich, who was traded for you in that deal. A quote from him about Bowman. It says, he treats everybody the same, like dogs. Right. Now, I saw him and what he did in Buffalo. He was successful his first year, and then as he put more of his stamp on the team, they weren't as successful. It was the only place in his entire career that he didn't reach the Cup final. What was your interaction with Bowman, and how did you get along, and how did you play under him in those 2 years?
Pretty much the same like everybody else. I mean, the players were your teammate. That was your family. The coaching staff, he did what he had to do, but
sure,
in the room, you look around, and that was our biggest concern, not the coach, whoever went on the ice. And we had a lot of talent. We had a great team. So, he did what he had to do, but he never, he never said good morning or Merry Christmas or Happy New Year. But he did that to everybody, so we're used to it, and that's how it went.
So I want to, Pierre, you're a legendary golfer too. I learned that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about this too.
When I wrote about you in one of my Ranger books. And so I see in 2004, you won the Lemieux Open, and then you also did very well in John Elway's tournament. You played against guys like Mario. You played against guys like Andy Van Slyke, some really great athletes. You beat a lot of them. How did you get so good at golf?
I started young. I was like 7 years old back home. You played.
Wow.
It was like the long winters. We played hockey when the summer came. The days were long, so we played golf. We had 4 or 5 friends. We went in the morning. We played all day. Great game. Really enjoyed it. And kind of let you practice at it, you get better. So I did.
You sure did.
No, I mean that's an amazing thing. I was going to ask you, what if you could just pick one for your entire life, and you could be the best at it in the world? Would you rather be the best golfer in the world or the best hockey player in the world?
Hockey, but
yeah, no, for sure. Yep. It's such a great passion. You played with a lot of great players, obviously, and against a lot of great players in different eras. I wanted to ask you who the greatest player you ever played with was, in your opinion. I know that's a tough one.
Well, Guy.
Yeah.
As far as playing on the same line, but we had Larry Robinson, Lafleur, Shutt, Lemaire, Dryden.
That team's crazy.
Lapointe, on and on and on and on. It was like, I think we had 12 Hall of Famer on Montreal. So, but as far as playing with a guy, Guy was like tremendous, unbelievable.
It must have been something to go to practices with those guys, and it must have just felt like a kid in a candy store every day.
Well, practice were hard. I mean, we were in shape. We had some great scrimmage. So that's how we prepared ourselves. That, Scotty got us in shape, and we got out of the gate good and made the season easier.
Well, what was the key with Guy? I mean, when I watched him, and then later he actually went to the Rangers, came out of retirement, and still looked great. But in those days, he was a lot faster than other guys. Was it just speed, or did he know exactly where to go on the ice too? Speed
and where he went. He knew everything about where to go. The funny part about that, New York, is like when we played with the Canadians, we were in the warm-up in New York one time. We said, wow, that would be great to play for the Rangers. Look at this. The fans are so great. Yeah. And both of us wound up playing there. So that was kind of
That's great.
I mean, talk about playing in obviously New York's such a hockey mecca. Talking to guys that have played there too. It's got to be something. I mean, you played in 2 of the greatest cities in the world. I mean, in Montreal and New York. I mean, there's no getting around that. I mean, What was it like I've talked to many players about this before, but I always find it interesting to talk to people about what it was like to go to Madison Square Garden, just that whole feeling of what that is in the city.
Well, you could hear the fans, prior to the game in the locker room, either on the road or being with the Rangers, mostly in the playoff. You could hear them. You were cranked up before you got on the ice. They were so into it. But it's New York and Madison Square Garden. It was really exciting to play there as a visitor and playing there for the Rangers.
And don't slight Hartford. He played 2 years in Hartford. I mean,
that was my punishment from Montreal.
Couple years in Hartford.
We met a lot of great people, though, so it's all good.
Now, just to extend on X question, because we've had a debate here about like the greatest player of all time, and your career spans. You probably played against Bobby Orr a couple games. You definitely saw Gretzky head to head, and you saw the beginning of Mario's career. They're all different players. You know, Mario is bigger. Gretzky had that unbelievable vision. You know, Orr was a defenseman. I mean, it's tough to. They're all phenomenal. They're all on the Mount Rushmore of hockey. But if you had to say one of the three, which one impressed you the most?
Well, I saw Bobby Orr at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be partial because I thought Mario was great.
Yeah.
So was Wayne. So again, it's all who's looking at it.
Yeah.
But if you would start a franchise, I think you can't go wrong with any three of them. But I would take Mario.
Okay.
Yeah. I've often thought that it was as one player, Mario, just what he did was just unbelievable. What he continued to do was unbelievable. Even when he came back after his illness, he comes back and he just dominates right away. I mean, that's got to be. It's not easy to dominate. I mean,
I started covering then, and I was covering a lot out of New York at the time when Mario did come back out of his illness. And one of his first games was at Madison Square Garden. And I got to tell you, he was excited as any hockey player that's ever walked through there. But it was still Mario Lemieux. Like, he was really down to earth, but he never missed a beat. He really was amazing, Pierre.
Yeah, he's very humble. Yeah, I mean, in those days too, we took a lot of punishment. So what Wayne did was outstanding. It's just a personal choice. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, Mario is, and I always looked at him as one of the best, if not the best player to ever played.
How much would you have liked to have played in a league without the 2-line pass?
or holding or slashing.
Right.
Yeah.
We were talking about that the other day. We used to get a breakaway, and both defensemen would break the stick on your arms, and you'd look at the ref and you say, "Hey, you got a shot off. What do you want?"
Right. I know penalty shots now. Penalty shots are called for a guy sneezing on somebody, and back with you, it was impossible.
It would be nice not to get whacked all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm totally sure. What like Mike said, we do often I talked to a lot of different French Canadian players like Simone Gagne here in Philadelphia, and players like that who were Danny Briere, who were afraid of going to Montreal for a bit, and then decided that they would go. What's your advice to a French player who does go to Montreal? Like, what would you say to him that's the most important thing to remember?
Just enjoy. People love you. I mean, people love the players. They're critical because they won so many Stanley Cup, and it's hard to see even for myself now looking at it.
Yeah.
But go enjoy it. Take it, enjoy it. Take it in. And like, this is great. You're playing in the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal, the great, the franchise of the league, and go enjoy yourself. It's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think the seriousness, the players, I've told players that too, like, just don't take it so seriously. Don't listen. I mean, there is so much media, but like you said, the fans, if the fans fall in love with you in Montreal, they fall in love with you unlike they do anywhere else.
Go enjoy it. It's great.
Pierre, I see, and I can't click on the video. I don't remember the outcome. Maybe you will, but you did have a penalty shot for the Rangers, and it's been talked about. I don't know if you scored or not, but give us an idea what it's like when you are taking a penalty shot and it's just you and the goalie.
Well, I hit the post.
Okay.
I remember that. It's the first time that I was really ever nervous.
Really?
Yeah, when it was time to go in the crowd screaming and yelling, and just like I was like, whoa. It was exciting. I mean, I was thinking about Deacon, and I got on top of the circle. I just let it go. It was like, I don't want to lose the puck, so shoot the darn thing. And he went left. I shot the puck right. Dead on the post, came right back at me. And, well, what are you gonna do?
Would you be a shootout guy now? Would you be one of the guys that would go in the shootout, you think?
I would hope so. I mean, I think you get used to it now because it happens so often.
Yeah.
But
how were you in practice?
It's a different game, though. Goaltending a bigger.
Yeah.
It's different.
How were you in practice with the penalty shots? I know you guys practiced them and stuff like that. All
the time. All the time.
Yeah.
We abuse the beezer.
Excellent.
One of the things that may be in the NHL's immediate future with the everything going on and maybe a smaller window to be able to finish the Stanley Cup playoffs is playing shorter series. And in your career you played best of 5 and even best of 3.
Right.
Which I remember in the late 70s and early 80s. I mean, we know the circumstances are odd here with everything that's going on, but how unfair is that to like play through an 82 game season and then have, if you have 2 losses in a row, you're done? Well,
they did that in those days, I guess, because that's the way the league was. It was not as watch on TV as it is now.
Yeah.
The 4 out of 7. losing the four rounds at 4 out of 7 would make a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get a couple bad breaks. You lose 2 games, you're done. Where 4 out of 7, you may lose the first 2 and win anyway. So it's going to bring a lot of luck into it, either good or bad. And if you're on the short end of it, you go home after 2 games. It's like, it's going to be deflated a little bit. But they have no choice now. They're going to have to do something. So
yeah, I know they are going to have to do something. What players in the NHL now do you love watching?
Well, I live in Pittsburgh, so I get to watch. Sid and Malkin.
Yeah.
And Letang, on and on and on. So watching Sid is just amazing.
Yeah.
How strong he is on the puck, how much he loves the game, how hard he works. Good kid.
Yeah, it's great.
It's great to watch. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been covering Crosby for pretty much his whole career, and he really got the business early on here in Philly with Darian Hatcher. Hatcher was just slashing him all over the place, but Crosby ended up scoring a goal, even though he got bloodied up in that game.
Yeah,
I was always impressed with him. But Pierre, the biggest thing that I'm impressed with is we have not seen him decline yet as a player.
He works out so much.
He works out hard.
He just loves it so much.
Yeah.
And I think more of you abuse him, better he gets. He's just so into it. And he's a tough kid. He's strong, man.
He really is. I mean, I've always said that I think he is the best grinder of all time. That's my feeling of him.
As the best player, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, just his ability to go into the corners, to cycle, to go to the net, and have the skill also, of course, to do it. But
and now he's using the net to make passes to himself.
Yeah. I mean, and his ability
we never thought of before. So
yeah, he grinds it out. He grinds it out, and then Philly would love him as a flyer. I mean, he's the perfect type. He's like Bobby Clark to the upteenth degree. He really is. That's the kind of player he is. It's crazy.
Pierre, did you ever get a real good speech out of Herb Brooks, maybe before a playoff game or something? Nothing. I'm sure it was nothing close to the Olympics or what they portrayed in Miracle, but can you remember anything where he really got to you guys?
Well, in 1986, we played the Flyers in the first round.
Yeah, I remember that.
Just before we got on the ice, he looked at us. He goes, "Gentlemen, battleship is safe in the harbor." we all looked at each other, then they hit us. Yeah, we're safe in here. Now let's go out.
Right.
He used to use some good one, but that was good.
That's a good one.
Safe in the harbor.
Oh man, I mean, to get to play with both of those coaches, are there any similarities between Brooks and Scotty Bowman?
No.
No.
No, it's just the way.
They're just different.
We're all different.
It just goes to show you can win different ways,
Herb was more involved, like to pick your brain, and he was like, he always asked questions, like,
right.
What do you think? What do you see? But he was tough too, though. They were both tough. I mean,
yeah,
at the same level, I would say.
Yeah.
The only similarity between the two is just knowing about both of them. Brooks was heavily influenced by the Russian style before Lake Placid, and Bowman was always like Tarasov, the older Russian coach before Tikhonov. He always studied his tactics, so I think they were both influenced by European hockey.
That's for sure.
Yeah, both big students of the game. Big students of the game. Well, Pierre, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on today. I mean, this was such an honor and a joy to be able to interview you. And
people should go look him up on YouTube. If you've never had a chance to see him play, you need to watch some of his goals. You do.
Yeah. And please be safe with your family and everything like that.
Well, same for you guys. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Everyone out there, and let's get through this and get back to hockey so we can get some excitement.
Yeah, I'll be back in Pittsburgh. I'm always in Pittsburgh. So
look me up.
All right, I'll look you up, Pierre. I'm not going to play golf with you. I stink.
Thanks for bringing some joy, everybody. You got everybody through another 20 minutes of this horrible thing. I appreciate it, Pierre.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys getting in touch with me so we could
live
some great time.
All right.
Thanks. Take care now.
You guys be safe.
Bye. You too. All right. That's Pierre LaRouche. What a joy. That was fantastic.
That was great.
Yeah. Wow. It's incredible.
I mean, he's more than a point a game in his career, too. It's shame.
Unbelievable. I mean, you look at his numbers, and it's just like
so good.
As a kid, it's funny because there's this sort of fuzzy part of your brain, in your memory. And it's like, and at first when I was building these greatest teams of all time, and I wanted to bring it up to him, but I didn't want to bog him down. But when I was doing it, I was thinking to myself, like a lot of people brought up Pierre LaRouche as a Penguin, and obviously, he could be considered in the Canadian world, but the Canadians have so many players. But it was just looking at it, it's just like he's kind of one of those guys in my mind. It's like when I go back and research him, I'm like, oh yes, I remember now. Like it triggers your like old memory as a child when you watch him for a second in some of the YouTube videos. When I see him in the YouTube videos, it like triggers my memory of like, oh, I remember that guy.
Well, you know what's real interesting when he brought up the '86 thing. I remember when the Rangers were playing the Flyers, and the Flyers used to have a pretty good hold on the Rangers. I didn't want to miss any of those games, and I had a bunch of softball games. And back then, what we were doing was we were putting on our radios while we were playing softball so we could listen to the game. And that was a heck of a series. I mean, the Rangers edged out the Flyers, and the next year the Flyers beat the Rangers again. But those were amazing series and always very memorable. But Brooks was a really great coach. Like, I don't think people realized they knew in the Olympics, but Brooks got picked on a lot as a coach in the NHL because he was completely different than everybody else.
I don't think I ever got to tell you that. I don't think I've ever told the story on here. I may have years ago, but of that one of those series, I think it was the one the Rangers won, which was that 86 or 86, right? And that was my because 86
that was on USA Network, I think. That's when
that was my senior year of high school, 86. So it was a good year for me because I'm going away to college. I really want the Flyers to win before I get out of here. Yeah. This is gonna be good before I go to college. I was really fired up, and Van Beesbrook was ridiculous in that series.
Oh yeah,
and he and there was a particular save that happened with about a minute left in the deciding game of that Van Beesbrook made on a shot from the point, and it was I forget who took the shot. I think I'm thinking like a Ben Wilson or something. I don't forget who it was, but it was 86.
Right.
And it was one of those things where my seats were high up in the corner, so I could see that Van Beesbrook couldn't see anything. Like I could see there were players all in front of him in every which direction. And then when I'm saying to myself when that puck comes through the point, I'm sitting next to Dan Wallace, who's our Minnesota Wild writer. Now I'm sitting next to him at that time. We're both he's in college, I'm in high school, and we're looking at we're saying if they can get the puck back to the point and get a shot through, Beezer won't see it, and there's no way he'll see it. And that happens. So shot, they get back to the point, the guy takes the shot, goalie's out for the Flyers, and out of nowhere, Beezer's like looking this way, he's looking that way, he's like trying to get his vision. He looks to the right, and then throws his arm up to the left, and catches the puck, and it was just like one of these things. And I said, it was like unbelievable that he made that save. It completely destroyed. That was the end of the.
He had a real good glove hand. He did.
And years after that, I was sitting at my first time like sitting at one of the media meals with John Van Beesbrook, and and he knew he also went to church with like one of my cousins, so I kind of had like a connection with him. So I started talking about the church he went to and all that stuff, and he knew that. And I said, I have to tell you the story. And he immediately like remembered the save completely and said, yeah. And it was just like, it was kind of cool. It was just a really cool thing to be able to say how this man destroyed my life, as a senior in high school. And then the Flyers were supposed to win the Stanley Cup that year and they didn't.
Now, the interesting thing, because he was drafted eighth in the first round, 8th overall in the 74 draft. It wasn't very common that a guy not taken 1st or 2nd overall would jump into the NHL as a 19-year-old. And he went right from the queue where he scored 251 points.
51 points.
Right, which is obscene.
It was like 60-some games. It was like something.
67 games. Yeah.
Like 4 points a game. I mean, that's like 4 points a game, guys, for a second. 4 points a game.
I was going to ask him, were you playing against like 8-year-olds? Because it's just unbelievable. I know. But he jumps into the NHL at 19 and he scores 31 goals.
That's what I'm saying. He should have won the Calder. He was very nice about it. Yeah, he had better numbers than Eric Vail, and Vail was a good player. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but, man, I don't know how you don't give it to LaRouche, especially 2 years younger too.
And to talk about like the cheap cards of our Stratomatic era. Yeah. Him with the Rangers. Now, Russ, do you know why he played? Because the only time he ever played in the American Hockey League was 85-86, and he played 32 games with Hershey, which was the Rangers affiliate. But he came up and he played 28 games with the Rangers and scored 20 goals in 28 games. His Stratomatic card his shot was Gretzky 92 goal like. That's how good.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Possible that he was part of the crew that was sent down by Ted Sater because he was being an idiot.
Okay.
And there were players that got swept up in that didn't deserve to be sent down, and they were.
Right.
He may have gotten swept up in that.
Yeah, and he had over a point a game for the Rangers in the playoffs, and they got to the conference final. So it's like,
No, he was.
Some kind of injury or like reconditioning stint. That's what it
great goal scorer. I don't think for 20 games it's an injury stint.
32.
32 games. That's a punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think that was Sater. That may have been Ted Sater.
It was Sater. It was.
Yeah, Sater was a jerk. He was a complete unadulterated jerk.
Yeah.
And he sent Roger Bear down. Like, it's like,
Oh,
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah, no, I'm not disputing it. I'm like,
I know.
What was going on in that room to take him to that point? You know.
Well,
Oh,
Sater did the same things in Buffalo when he was a Sabres coach. He was not very well, and that's why I wanted to bring up Bowman with LaRouche, because Bowman there's no doubt he's the greatest coach of all time. He made the Cup final with St. Louis. He won cups in Montreal, Detroit, Pittsburgh. There was something about when he got control in Buffalo, because he was given complete control. He was GM and coach.
Yeah.
At that point, he didn't know how to handle it. He made all these trades. They got to the semifinal in his first year after he won 4 cups, and that was a really good team. And he spent the next 2 years dismantling that team because he wanted to be in complete and utter control.
Well,
here's the list.
You know where he learned all that fun stuff, because he was the assistant coach to Mike Keenan in Philly.
Let me give you the list of the guys.
Right?
Yeah, he was. Let me give you the list of the guys that Ted Sater sent down. Marcel Dion, Blaine Stoughton, Mike Rogers, Ken Hodge, Pierre LaRouche, Ron Duguay.
Jesus.
There you go.
It's an all-star team.
That must have been a fun Hershey team to watch. Feel good about it.
I'm sure they were angry.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? We
have a lot of quotes in 100 Ranger Greats and the other Ranger book that I wrote about Ted Sater, because he is hated. Like, I won't even bring up Sater to Mike Rogers, because I won't do it to those guys. Nobody liked them.
And by the way, Russ, when looking up Pierre LaRouche's Wikipedia, his ranking in the 100 Ranger Greats is in his profile.
Yeah, you guys. That's usually good. With Wikipedia is good. You guys have somebody who's must be helping you get that stuff in there, because that's good. They're all over the place.
All right, so here's the story on that. It was my idea. I said to Raider, I said, look, why don't we put a bunch of our guys in Wikipedia for the Rangers book, at least the top 10? Adam went crazy, and he put in like a bunch.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to do, because it gives promotion to your book.
Yep.
And it also shows, that it also puts perspective on the player.
Yeah, it was my idea back in the day to slip that in there.
That's great. I figured it was.
I admit it.
You didn't have to admit it, but I figured it was. But
selling.
It makes total sense. It makes absolutely total sense. Why wouldn't you do that? That's like totally. That's
if you think about it, Pierre would be like in 100 Canadians greats. He would be in 100 Penguins greats too.
Yeah.
Like the impact he had was just fantastic.
So one of the things that when you look at his accomplishments is that he scored 50 goals as a Canadian, and remains and holds the record still for the most goals by a Canadian center at 50.
Yeah,
which
all the guys that have played there.
Think about all the players who played there, and no one else on the Montreal Canadiens has ever scored 50 goals from the center position. That's like a kind of a crazy.
Most of their goal scorers are wingers. Jeff,
the Rangers, he has the record too, like as a 45, I think, for the Rangers center, as well. So that's like another like.
No, I think Messier may have beaten that.
I gotta look it up again on Wikipedia. I was just looking at it this morning. I'll bring it up. Right now.
Messier didn't score 50 though.
No, he didn't score 50, but in 91 he may have had
49.
40.
He may have 49.
Yeah.
Do you want to save the trivia question for now or later?
We can do a trivia question.
Okay. Well, Pierre LaRouche is the first player in NHL history to score 50 goals for 2 different teams. There are 7 players in total. He's one of them. Who are the other 6?
Phil Esposito.
No. LaRouche was the first.
I'm sorry, Mike. I was looking up the thing, so I want to repeat the question in a second. Give me one. So he does hold the New York Rangers record for most goals in a season by a center.
That's right. It's with the Rangers. He didn't. Sorry. Yeah, he does. Okay.
48 goals in 83-84. So
he came within 2 goals of being the only person in NHL history to score 50 goals for 3 teams.
Yeah, right. He is the only player in NHL history to score 45 goals with 3 teams.
Yes.
He's the first player in NHL history to have 50 goals with 2 teams. So.
Okay.
So anyways, I'm sorry, Mike, repeat that question.
So the trivia question is, LaRouche was the first for 50 goals with 2 teams, Pittsburgh and Montreal.
Right.
There have been 6 players since, and he scored 50 with the Canadiens in 1980. So since 1980, there have been 6 players who have scored 50 goals or more with 2 different teams. Who are they?
Good question.
Yeah, Phil had 42 with the Rangers.
Right. One is obvious.
Yeah, one is obvious, and it's like
It's a guy that you wrongly believe is the best player.
I know. We know it's Wayne Gretzky. We'll move on from him.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, actually, so looks like Messier had 47.
Okay.
Brad Hall.
No, he did all of his goals with St. Louis. He never scored over 50 with Detroit or Dallas
Or Calgary, I think.
or again, he not Calgary either.
Yeah.
I'll include people in the chat. Flyer Fan 16 got one. Pavel Bure with Vancouver.
Yeah, Bure's a good one. I mean, we have to. I mean, Gordie Howe.
LaFontaine,
No, it's after 1980.
It's after, right?
Yeah,
right.
Because he was the first.
Yeah.
And so Gretzky, LaRouche, and Bure so far. Two players had their goal high in the same year.
How about Phil Kessel? Was Phil Kessel one of them?
Phil Kessel's never scored 50.
No.
I'm trying to think of really good players that have been traded.
Okay, I'll give you the teams that they played for, and that'll help. This one played for the Islanders and Buffalo.
Oh, Pat LaFontaine.
Pat LaFontaine.
I did say LaFontaine. You missed it. I said LaFontaine. You said no.
Okay, this one played for Winnipeg and Anaheim.
Solani.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
This one played for Pittsburgh and the Rangers.
Pittsburgh and the Rangers.
Wait, besides LaRouche?
Yes, besides LaRouche. He also played for Boston, Philadelphia, Washington.
God, I'm thinking of it. Is it like
Bill C has it in the chat. Jaromir Jagr.
Oh, Jagr.
What the hell is wrong with us?
Yeah, that should have been easy.
And the final one, this one played for Buffalo and Vancouver. And is not in the Hall of Fame, and it's a disgrace.
Buffalo, Vancouver. Holy cow.
Well, McGillney's in the Hall of Fame, and he didn't.
No, he's not in the Hall of Fame.
He's not? I thought he was.
Nope.
Oh, then McGillney.
It's McGillney. Right? McGillney should be in the Hall of Fame.
I thought he got in. I thought.
No, he didn't get in.
How is he not in the Hall of Fame? Just for what he's done, for what he meant to hockey.
That's nuts.
Yeah, LaRouche, Gretzky, LaFontaine, McGillney, Solani, Bure, and Jagr.
That's a hell of a list, man. If LaRouche would have played a couple more years, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and
he's not in the Hall of Fame too. Honestly, like when you look at those numbers, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's the Hockey Hall of Fame too. Just that Q season. I mean, you throw that Q season on top of it. It's not just the NHL Hall of Fame. Remember, so
I know, but I think it's just because he had those couple of years towards the end where he couldn't stay on the ice. He'd play great. He couldn't play. He played great, and then it was the end. And I think if he'd have had like 2 more solid goal years, he probably would have been in there.
He won Stanley Cups. He did. He's got everything in his head. He's got everything.
He's got everything.
I mean, not everything is based on Stratomatic cards. I obviously realize that, but I refer to him as the sort of a poor man's Marcel Dion.
Yeah, totally.
He was never any more than a 2 on defense, and
he was full out offense.
Like full out offense, and that's great.
Which is interesting with because it felt like to me. I should ask this question. This is a good question if we ever did talk him again. Is like the defensive responsibilities that were given to him by Brooks versus the defensive responsibilities that were given to him by Bowman.
Oh, I mean, Brooks was not nearly as defensive.
Right. I mean, Bowman was all about playing a 2-way game all the time.
I didn't want to go down. I didn't want to go down this road with him. But the thing I was struck by is, okay, he had injury. He must have had injury issues in the both years they won the cup because he only played 44. Well, no, he played 64 games total in the first year, 20 with the Penguins, 44 with the Canadians. He only played 36 games in 79, and he only played 11 playoff games between the 2 years. So it must have been injuries, but
yeah. He had injuries.
Either that or Bowman didn't play him because he thought he was a defensive liability, which I did.
No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure he had injuries. So that penalty shot looks like it was his only penalty shot, but he had 14 hat tricks.
Oh my god!
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember it's hard to like explain. He really was like I'm trying to put him into terms of somebody in the current NHL, like for like because we compare him to like compare. I mean, I think. Because most of the guys, like unless you're old like us, don't remember.
On reference,
it's tough to categorize because he's a dynamic scoring small center.
It's funny because on Hockey Reference, they've got guys like Camilleri, Rabada, Ladd, Shepard, Samsonov. He's better than all of them.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, and it kind of, it kind of is interesting. I mean, I brought him up, but I would say a little bit like Briere, like in some ways.
Well, no, here's one. At the bottom of the list, I don't know why he's at the bottom. He was a lot like Dennis Maruk. That's who he was a lot like.
Right. No, definitely. Maruk was, very similar.
He's a contemporary of Maruk.
But again, older. So I think to me, it's like the current NHL, Briere's even older too. So I'm trying to think like.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Danny Briere is listening. He's very old.
Yeah. Gaudreau. Johnny Gaudreau-ish a little bit.
But
yeah, I think Gaudreau's a little more dynamic of a playmaker than him, and he's a better goal scorer than Gaudreau.
Yeah. But like that kind of similar kind of like explosion style that like they explode through. Like my memory of LaRouche is very much like my memory of like Gaudreau at his best, which is like taking that pass like midway through the blue line and the center line and just exploding through and breaking through on the defense, not having a chance at him. That kind of thing. Like
yeah.
I remember so many breakaways from LaRouche's. Like, when I think of him, that's what I think of. That's the play that pops into my head.
I think LaRouche is a better scorer than this guy. But what about Claude Giroux?
Yeah, I mean, there's something there, but he's definitely a better goal scorer. Giroux's never been a great goal scorer. He's been a good goal scorer, but a great assist guy, a great playmaker. Yeah, but there's something there. I mean, there's some of that in him for sure.
Right.
The thing is, like someone like Giroux will make the Hall of Fame over him. But if you're going to tell me that Giroux is more talented than LaRouche, I might fight you on it because
I don't think Giroux's
I'm not sure that that's true.
Giroux's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer.
I think he's going to have a chance down the line.
I think he's going to need to win a cup before he retires.
His career is still very much unwritten. Like there's still a good 5 years at least left with Giroux. But I think that because also the shape that players stay in nowadays, they're going to play a lot longer.
I got to tell you, Pierre looked like he was in good shape, man. He looks like he can go right out on the golf course.
Yeah, he looks fine.
About this. He's beating guys like Elway and Mario and really great athletes.
Okay. Can we transition to what I think is the most ridiculous sporting event that's going to get publicized over the next month or so?
Sure.
This golf death match between Brady, Peyton Manning, Tiger Woods, and Phil Mickelson.
I don't even care.
I don't. Right. Even with the coronavirus, even with everybody shut down, I don't know anybody in their right mind that should watch this bore fest. But it's going to get ratings because everybody's home.
I'm not watching it. I have no interest. Zero. It's again. I'm not sure I like any of them. Peyton Manning might be the most likable of that group.
Yeah, I mean, Peyton Manning's likable. I like Mickelson. I do like Mickelson. He does too many.
I don't dislike him. I just don't think he's that likable.
He does commercials that are pretty lame, but
yes, his commercials are lame.
Okay, so the big news that's come out in the last 24 hours is, and Kevin was one of the first to report on it in his column on Hockey Buzz yesterday, was the alternate sites, not neutral sites.
Yeah,
that they're going to be looking at. And Bettman was interviewed by Ron McLean yesterday, and Bettman, had to. I think Russ was right because of the comments that came out of Florida.
Oh, we knew it. We knew the minute
that he had to come in and do the little bit of damage control. And what he said was, we're still open to anything because we just, in the end, what we want to do is play the games. But it does seem to be, it's coming from a number of different places that what they're going to do is probably choose one city per division and have all the teams go to that city and play like basically the first and second round. It's sort of like an NCAA type of setup where, it's host cities. And I don't think that's a bad idea, but I'm a little questioning. And like I said, right now we don't know where or when or how. But Frank Cervelli posted on TSN this morning that one of the cities is Toronto. Now, Toronto has a ton of rinks. There's no doubt. They have a ton of hotels. But it's not as big of a hot spot right now as someplace like Montreal, which apparently the ratings of coronavirus per capita is ridiculous. But Toronto's got their own problems, and we heard before about them basically shutting down everything until I think June the 30th. So I'm not so sure about Toronto. Kevin and Chris Johnston from Sportsnet both have said Buffalo, and I think that has a greater chance of happening than Toronto does.
Yeah, I think the Toronto thing, unfortunately, Frank got swept up in the fact that, it would be great for TSN, but it's not going to happen.
No, it's too big of a city.
It's too big. There's too many people in such a small area. Buffalo is so much of a better choice, and the fact that he didn't even write about Buffalo makes no sense.
Right. It's like
on any planet.
Yeah.
I guess, but the other thing is, and I think this part's kind of getting lost now. It's like you not only have to be in a place that has the ice sheet and could handle things, but you also don't want to come in contact with tons of people, and everybody will know people from Toronto and inevitably will get in touch with them.
Buffalo's not that much different though.
And the other, it's different because I'll tell you what the difference is. Not everybody can go over the border.
That's true.
And we talked about Couturier waiting for his green card. Well, I don't know what happens to him now with Trump basically putting another 60-day hold on something like that. Could he go over temporarily? Like, we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing I whenever it comes to sports right now, I think anything that is necessary to get these teams back and playing, they're going to get some sort of special dispensation.
You know what's crazy about that is I knew a person for a very long time, and this is a kind of a sad story, but I knew a person for a very long time who was trying to get, wanted to become a U.S. citizen, and they were here, they were working here, and they were really hard, and they were working really hard. They had kids, and they were, basically they have kids here and everything like that, and they're great people. And I tried, my best to go around, and I did research for them. I helped them do this kind of stuff, and then I even went at one point. I went to the Flyers because I went to them and I said, "Listen, I know that you guys deal with this kind of stuff all the time because you have players coming over from Europe or whatever, and and how does this happen?" And they were nice. They helped me. They gave me some names, but I did get a sense that there is definitely that kind of stuff. I think can be quickly worked out.
Yeah.
For the people that matter, and it's a shame. It sucks for like my friend and all that stuff. But I think that I think when you have, there's.
Although he's been stuck here, he said on the Flyers conference call that he couldn't go back to Canada because he didn't have his green card. He was stuck waiting for it.
Yeah, no, I know, but I think that will be an issue until it plays into like stopping business or whatever, like stopping the hockey thing happening. Then
they'll do something temporary for sure.
Figure out something pretty quickly.
But again, I mean, this is no slight to Canada. Unless you're using a remote place in Canada, but then travel is going to be hard. Canada might be left out of this completely because, again, more teams are in the U.S. That's just a fact.
Well, right, but and the only other venue that I think that Frank mentioned was Edmonton, and that's because of multiple.
Right. That's a fairly big city.
And Buffalo is about 220,000. But the thing is, it's like you've got two rinks within walking distance of each other. You've got 4 or 5 hotels within less than a mile from the KeyBank Center and Harbor Center. And Russ, we know that the TV sight lines are good because the World Junior was here just a few years ago. So it would present them with opportunities for practice facility and games.
Well, and you know what the other thing is, Mike, with commerce not being at its top right now, most of those people are in the suburbs for Buffalo.
Yes. Yeah.
That's true too.
Down.
For Edmonton, I think it's probably more. I mean, I'm sure they have tons in the suburbs, but I bet you they have more in the city than Buffalo does.
But other places,
a lot of people live in the city of Edmonton. Like I've being up there, like it's a lot. Like even with the exception of, even in the Midwest, when we're in the Northeast here, we're used to people living in the cities.
Right.
Even when you get in the Midwest, even like places like St. Louis and stuff like that, like people, the cities are very different than they are here.
Okay, so they may be able to do it in Edmonton then.
Yeah, I don't think.
But then travel becomes an issue. Then you have to at least get one more place that's close to Edmonton, so you're not having guys go on these ridiculous travels.
Minnesota, Raleigh, North Carolina, Edmonton, Toronto, Columbus, Buffalo. Apparently, what they're doing is they're going to nail down probably up to 10 potential sites, and then based on the frequency of the COVID-19, of how much it is, how prevalent it is in those areas, make their decision then. I think they're just going to make sure They have options. I know that there are people that are skeptical. I mean, it made my heart sink a little bit when Bob Costas was on New York radio yesterday, and he said that no professional sports were going to play in 2020. I respect him, but I think that's way off base.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that yet. I'm not.
You can't say that yet. I mean, if that was the case, we wouldn't. That definitely would. The NHL wouldn't be talking like they're talking right now.
Right. I don't think we're there yet, and so I'm not going to go there. But let's talk about the draft, because I did make some inquiries, and this is not to any real high-ranking official. It's just that people who know about the draft and such. And what I did find out is not only are scouts a lot of those contracts that we were talking about, but also team presidents and people like that too that just haven't had contracts renewed. So if they did have a draft, let's say in October, they would be very undermanned at that draft. Even though you could say, hey, you've got all of Bill's work there and Bill doesn't work for us anymore, to have it all at your fingertips, it's not as easy as you think, because they don't have a board of like 250 players staring them in the face.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And I talked to a team person as well who said, that there is a general thing that, it's not like you couldn't rehire those guys and bring them on another year, but at the end of every year, teams like to do their big assessment and swap in and out people. So like the inability to do that, because they already know that some people already know, you're going to work with us for the draft, but they're going to be gone after that. That kind of
we know even in this current scenario, there are going to be changes. I mean, otherwise New Jersey wouldn't have interviewed Gerard Gallant. It's not like Ali Nazardine is going to be the coach of New Jersey and Tom Fitzgerald is going to be interim GM for another year. These teams are going to make changes, and when a GM gets hired and a coach gets hired, they hire staff, they hire scouts, they fire scouts. So it's going to, that's all. I mean, that's why your article, Eck, about your idea, we talked a little bit yesterday. Again, there's only one problem with that. It's like I don't think the NHL wants to set the precedent of a lot, because some general manager is going to do it if they allow the trade deadline at the draft before the playoffs. Somebody is going to basically make another 2 or 3, essential rental deals.
Yep.
And I don't think the NHL will. That would bastardize the playoffs even more if they did that. It's like, okay, I don't think they want to cheapen. I don't think it's the cup victory would be cheapened even playing in the scenario that we're talking about right now. But if Pittsburgh goes up and loads up 2 or 3 more players, then I think that there will be a call for that being, okay, that's not a real victory because they loaded up and got this guy.
In order to do that, they'd have to make some moves too, because the way this all works is, I mean, you're right. You can go for rentals, but the Penguins have like draft picks to make those moves, or players to make those moves. I mean, the idea here is, the trade deadline is a big circle of life moment in the NHL, because it's when those teams that are bad get rid of the players and build towards their future. That always helps the NHL in the long run.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that aside. Sorry, trades aside, and we could talk about the trades in a sec. I just think I am more convinced now that I'm like at 80% that the draft is going to be in June. And I think we're going to hear that the draft is going to be in June by like the beginning of May. I think that's when the NHL is going to actually hear it.
As early as this weekend, Russ, to be honest.
Somebody wrote that they have to make this decision very, very quickly.
Oh, it has to happen very fast. But I think it's already been decided. I think it's happening in June. I really do.
I do too.
And I had some people talk to me yesterday about the idea that the trade idea, and it wasn't dismissed, which was interesting. Like I said, is this completely ridiculous? Tell me right now, because I'm going to write an article about it. And I think that
it's not out of the realm of possibility. I know that some people have said they're going to be limiting the trades to pick for pick. Like a second and a third for a higher second or something like that. And it's not going to involve players because the contracts are still. I
heard one thing that's interesting, Mike. That one of the people I talked to, who's pretty high up, said that there would be limitations if that happened. He didn't think it would be as open as the trade deadline where everybody's free game, but he did think that it was possible that UFAs and RFAs could be allowed to be traded.
Yeah,
not current players under longer contracts than that, but it's possible that you would have like a UFA RFA thing that you could move them. And I brought up the salary cap issue, because obviously the salary cap is going to be a big problem for making those trades happen. And and that's something that they said they could be looking at too. I mean, and Bettman came out and said yesterday, if you read between the lines, and Bettman doesn't do this very often, but when he says this, you know that Bettman gives you like 1/10 of what he's really thinking.
Right.
When he sits there and says we're going to look at creative ideas here and different concepts, that means that they're looking at some really. For Bettman to say that at all, it means that he's looking at some really big concepts.
Yeah, and the only the overriding thing that I drew from watching Bettman with the interview with McClain is the fact that, again, it sounds like they're going to do everything possible to get this season in.
Yeah.
Everything. Now he said, pushing back the start of the regular season next year, depending on what goes on, but he's still sticking with, we want to play 82 games next year. So I think that means that, they'll push it to November. Maybe they push it to December 1. I just can't see them pushing it to January and playing until late July.
Yeah, the December playing worries me because of what we're hearing.
I agree.
And so that's, to me, that is problematic.
The feeling is if you start in December, for the NHL, ask yourself this question: why does the NHL want to play 82 games? Right? They want to play 82 games because they need the revenue for it.
Right.
If it does turn out, like in the past, New York and California have sort of been a harbinger of things in this situation. If it does turn out that no one wants to have events in their arenas before 2021, then it makes no sense to start in December. You know what I mean? It makes sense to just to start in January.
Well.
And then push everything back and find a way to make it fit.
Well, I mean, presuming that some of the things that we've heard about it possibly spiking back up in December, I think it behooves the NHL to start the season as early as possible, because if you have to shut things down for a month, then if you do that, if you start the season in December and you have to shut down December 31st for
that's going to stall things. Yeah,
that's going to stall things. If you start November 1. You've got that 2 weeks that you would have normally used for the bye week and for the All-Star game in case you have to shut down in place for 14 days.
Right. I mean, and I think you're looking at a better deal then. But I do think this draft will happen. I think I have a feeling I'm going to be busy again beginning of next month, even though I haven't really stopped. So I've kept up with the draft, and if that's the case, we do find out it's June. We'll start picking up the content for the draft on this show too. I honestly think, look, it's good ratings. It's why keep those kids waiting? There's no point in keeping them in limbo until next November. I mean, to November, that's silly.
And the way things are going, Russ, we'll get a chance to see Gary Bettman's basement like we saw.
Right, and I definitely need to see that.
Well, to me, if the NFL draft is going to be as highly ranked, as rated as everyone assumes it's going to be, which is going to be enormous, right?
There could be 16 million watching the NFL draft.
It makes sense for the NHL to come out very shortly after that and announce they will be doing the draft in June.
Of course, and I will tell you this:
to piggyback on the back of that success, and I think that
we have to see how many blunders happen to the NFL in this draft, because I told Mike the other day, there was a wife vacuuming during the test and she knocked out a cord because the cord for the GM setup wasn't exactly near him. It was somewhere else in the house. That happened. Kids knocked the one GM off a line because they were both on their iPads.
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure. No question.
There are going to be some issues. And because it's 3 days for them, I have to believe that it's going to be hard for them to keep their internet on lockdown for 3 days.
Short of the Atlanta Falcons GM who can send his family out to the theaters because they're opening them on Friday.
Right.
You can't send your family out for 5 hours while you're in the draft.
Right. So there's going to be those kinds of issues, and bandwidth will definitely be an issue, especially depending where some are. But the thing is, now the NHL may have an advantage, because by then they may be able to go back to the team facility and do it from all the team facilities.
Yes.
Right. I would like to think that tonight in the NFL that they would have people be smart enough. I mean, we've run podcasts and we've only gotten knocked off a few times.
Okay, but Eck, I've been watching a lot, way more than the NFL draft than I should. As a Jet fan, I probably shouldn't even watch it all. But they sent packages to every prospect, right, that's going to get drafted or think they're going to get drafted, so they can hook them up into, basically internet hookup, give them the mic, give them everything, right? So they all have those boxes.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people. That's a lot of personnel all at their houses. That's a lot of draft picks all at their houses. They're all using this technology. You have to believe. And now the good thing is they're going to have time on the clock, and they may have to extend it at times based on how communication's flowing. So they're not going to be so tough about the clock like they usually are.
Yeah.
You have to believe that there will be slowdowns because of latency problems. It's going to be almost impossible not to
Here's
have.
the thing that I would worry about more than that, Russ. Say I'm going to pick a team, Seattle Seahawks, and I'm trying to work out a trade.
Right.
And I'm running up against the clock. Someone knocks my internet out for a second. Sorry, my internet's down.
As a delay,
you can still text
as a delay tactic. You're like, and then you say, no, because there's going to, I think that you could see. I wouldn't be shocked if a team pulled something like that. Like that would
Even
be.
if they did, you could still text the guy, and then you could text Roger Goodell. Like you
still text it for sure, but I wonder.
Guys text each other all the time. GMs do it all the time.
Oh, I know, but they'd be like, they could be like, oh, my texting works with my texting's.
I broke both my thumbs. I can't text.
I can see the NFL like giving like some leeway to certain things, and
it's going to be leeway. They talked about it because there's no way you can't.
Right, and teams
there's no way you can't,
because anything that's like that in sports, GMs will find a way to take advantage of.
Sure, I mean I agree with you, but you got to remember this. One reason Tom Brady threw his phone into the ocean is because the NFL, I believe, has a way of looking on everybody's cell phones, because I think they do have some sort of tracking. And so they could go back and look at, your phone records to see if you're telling the truth based on your texting and stuff. They do. I don't know exactly what they have going on, but maybe they have an app.
They're like, that seems like kind of
No, but I think they have an app or something. That's why Brady wanted to throw his phone away, because the NFL asked for his phone, and they probably have a way of searching for their stuff. I bet you they have an app.
I don't think they'll have a rule. You have to you either have to use like a company phone, or you have to. The only thing
I think it's something like that.
I don't think he threw the phone into the ocean, Russ. I think he threw it into the wrong house that he tried to go.
No, well, that's another thing. And now he's trying to make light of it on Twitter. It's like that wrong house. I get going to the park. You don't do that by accident. You do that because you think you're Tom Brady and you could go there and you'll be okay.
Apparently, Derek Jeter's house does not have a backyard. So
Did you see Colbert talked about
How
that?
did that house not have a backyard?
Colbert said that last night. He brought up a picture of the house and said that there's obviously no place to work out here for Tom Brady. Like the picture of the house is just like unbelievably enormous. It's got a backyard. It's got a pool. It's got everything you can imagine.
Yeah, how can you throw in a pool?
We have some questions here in the chat room.
Okay.
So Adam Ziller, what advantage does this give Seattle? I guess the thinking here is, and he says, he kind of explains it later a little bit. If we don't have, does any of this change the way Seattle, if the players don't play?
I think it's a disadvantage because they're seeing fewer games than Vegas got to see of players in different spots in different areas, especially players that'll be in the expansion draft, because with the season being paused in all these other leagues and everything else, a lot of times they were scouting a lot of college guys knowing that they'd be free agents because they could sign those free agents. I think Seattle gets hurt here a little bit.
What if the 2021 offseason is shortened by this, which is possible?
Right.
That also plays. That I think is the bigger thing.
Well, one thing this could do is, and remember, there were limitations in terms of players that could be exposed for Vegas. It was 40 games in 1 year, 70 games. Those amounts are going to have to be adjusted because this year was shortened and next year might be shortened. So that's one thing. I think another thing that's unfair, and that this was going to happen one way or the other, Vegas is not included in the their players. They don't have to protect 8-3-1. They're exempt from Seattle. Seattle can't choose anybody from Vegas.
That's really interesting.
No, I'm going to give you
at this point. Vegas is a full out team. That was obviously decided on long ago. Like Vegas. That's something Vegas negotiated years ago.
Right. I'm going to give you what could be an advantage for them. Let's say there is no college hockey season next year, which is a possibility. Seattle can go after players that are seniors quickly, because if they're like 2 months into the season and the NCAA says, hey, guys, there's no season, these guys aren't going to wait. There's no reason to wait. And Seattle can go right after them like any other team, like any other free agent. So that's where they may have an advantage, because they might be able to get a few guys that other teams can't because of the playing opportunities that they'll have.
Well, Adam says trades. That's going to be an advantage for Seattle because remember,
How does he get 2 questions in? He doesn't get 2 questions.
We love Adam.
it's like
He deserves.
they're a clean slate. They have say if the cap stays the same, they have $81.5 million in cap space to fill, and they have to get to the league minimum. So you're talking for example, and I brought this up a couple days ago, a guy like Tyler Johnson for Tampa Bay.
Oh, yeah.
He's from Washington State. He's from Spokane. He's got a $5 million contract. He's not over the hill. He's still a good player. Tampa Bay is going to have to give up somebody to open up cap space for players they need to sign. That could be a deal where they trade him to say you have to take this guy, and they get 2 for the price of 1. And that is what helped benefited Vegas. So, Ron Francis is going to be able to take advantage of those situations and be able to get more players.
All right, so now we're going to talk about the NFL draft for a minute, team-wise.
Before we do that, let's do one more thing, and then we will jump onto the pre-show type thing. Because I think we need to do this now that we're thinking that the draft is going to be in June.
Draft simulator, yeah.
I think we got to go to the draft simulator.
All right, let's do it.
From our buddies at Tankathon. We made them famous, and now they're famous everywhere. All right, here we go. Simulate the lottery. And it is Ottawa.
Wow.
Ottawa, and this gets the first and 4th pick overall.
Oof.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Winnipeg makes a big jump up to the 2nd spot. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Winnipeg would take Byfield in a quick minute, man.
Look on that team. That would be pretty interesting.
You would have guys, such big, strong centers on that team. It would be unbelievable.
Yeah, I know.
Scheifele, Lowry, Byfield.
I told you, this is the worst case scenario for Lafreniere going to Ottawa because it's like Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's rookie card is with the Seattle Supersonics. Kevin Durant is not known for being a Seattle Supersonic. That's all I'm going to say on this subject. So your imagination work the rest.
What you're saying is that Lafreniere.
I'm not saying it, Mike.
I'm saying it. He'll be a Quebec Nordique.
Holdout? No.
No, he's
not a holdout, but just the team that drafts him may be a different name by the time he, really gets rolling in his career.
Yes.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
That's what happened to Kevin Durant.
A lot of rumors, and I wrote about it too, that there are people in Quebec that believe they're going to get an expansion team now from not an expansion, but a relocated team.
Yes.
Possible.
And no one really talks about where that's coming from. But it could be Ottawa, it could be Florida, it could be other places too. But
I can't see them moving out of Florida. And now I think with the new ownership in Arizona, I think they're safe. They want to stay in that big U.S. market because
the obvious one would be Ottawa now because that's not a big leap going from Ottawa to Quebec. It's not.
Right.
And that team is set up, and Russ knows this because of all the good young prospects that they have. They're set up for success in 2 or 3 years. So if they move to Quebec City, that rivalry between Quebec and Montreal will blow up.
Yeah, they aren't that far apart.
That'd be massive. All right. So now we're going too far over. Now the NFL draft real quick. So I'll talk about the Jets real quick. Mike will talk about Buffalo. The obvious thing about the Jets is they're picking 12th, or is it 11th? 11th. And there's a guy, Jerry Jeudy. He's the best receiver in the draft.
Yeah.
They don't have great receivers. Sam Darnold's a young quarterback. Obviously, they need that. They want offensive linemen, but I hear there's going to be a big run on linemen. My worry as a Jet fan is they will trade one of their extra 3rd-round picks and move up just to get a lineman, and that would really bug me. I think they should stay where they are and get Jerry Jeudy now. If they see that some other team might take him, use your pick and get that because I want the guy who can run a 4.27 40 and run great routes. Now, there's another guy, C.D. Lamb. That's a crazy name, but he could run a 4.27, but I don't think he's as good. And
Russ, don't worry about offensive lineman. Vladimir Dukas is available.
Yeah, I know. So end of the day, what will probably happen is 2 things. I'll make a giant prediction. They always move down in the draft, except for Saquon Barkley. They always move down. And the Jets may move down too. And that will bug me because what they'll do is they'll move down like 5 spots and they'll take like the 2nd or 3rd receiver off the board instead of the 1st. That's my worry. Now, Mike, you could talk about the Bills.
I'm actually in favor of the Bills before any of this happened traded their 1st-round pick.
Right.
And then in the Diggs deal. So if there's a draft to trade your 1st-round pick, this is it. This was it. you got value. You got a guy who's signed for a contract for I think another 3 or 4 years. You weren't able to like do all your due diligence on some of the players. So and you can extrapolate that and talk about the NHL draft that way too. It's like, okay, not that it was an optimum situation for the Leafs to have to trade a first round pick to get rid of Patrick Marleau's contract, but if there is one year where you don't mind giving up a first round pick, or it's a less of a hit, it's a year where you don't know what's going on. There's uncertainty. So I think like the Bills and the Leafs in that situation are both benefiting from the fact that they traded picks in this particular year.
So what's their first pick? Second rounder?
Second rounder, 54th overall.
What do you think they're taking? What position?
There's been talk of defensive end, because they have a little age on defensive end. There's been talk of running back. They like this. I know the guy who's mentioned was A.J. Dillon out of Boston College, who's like 250 pounds, but he ran more in 3 years at Boston College than anybody had run in 4 years.
Sounds like New Jersey's own Ron Dane to me.
Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah. And,
all right, so Eagles wise, I think they're picking somewhere in the 20s. Yeah. And they need a wide receiver in the worst way. Now, the interesting thing is the Jets GM used to be with the Eagles, and he's the same guy who couldn't draft them a wide receiver. So that's another thing that worries me as a Jet fan. But Carson Wentz has no real targets other than an old, decrepit Deshaun Jackson. Will the Eagles trade up and get a better quality defenseman, a wide receiver, or will they stay where they are, or will they move down and because it's a big wide receiver draft and try and get like the 4th or 5th guy on the board and get more picks?
I think the pressure. I mean, I don't know anything, obviously, but I think in this situation, I actually do in hockey, believe it or not, but I don't in this situation. I don't have any connections in football at all. But I think I'm just curious if there'll be any pressure on teams to not trade down because the draft is such a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, you mean team wise, like just to keep their fans engaged?
Yeah, keep their fans interested. Because the trade down is like
I don't think GMs give a crap.
It's the biggest excitement suck out of a room. If you're like
I know
sitting there and they traded the 5th pick for the 12th and 23rd.
NFL GMs are joyless. They really are.
Yeah, they're machines.
It probably won't have any saying on it, but it's pretty funny. I think the Eagles I think are still
staying.
It feels like they still feel like they're a top team and are still going to go for it mode right now.
Right. So you think they're going to move up for a better receiver?
Probably try to move up. That's been their history, at least. Don't you think? I mean,
I do.
They've been pretty aggressive, and they're still close enough to winning a Super Bowl. They still have enough of those people on the team, and they still believe Carson Wentz can be like all that, and a bag of bucks. So yeah,
there is a word. Anthony said there's word that they may go after a linebacker first. If that's the case, if they're drafting in the 2nd round for a receiver, there's going to be a few gone. So, they'll probably be picking like the 6th or 7th or 8th best receiver at that point. That's where they can run into
offensive coordinator. If you my personal opinion, I just think that how bad this team was last year, watching them in the first half of games and just their inability to play until they're down by 2 touchdowns.
Right.
I mean, there's something wrong. There's something inherently wrong with their strategies coming out of the locker rooms. They only play well when they're in danger.
It's true.
The Flyers and Eagles both kind of share that same quality.
But the high drama in this draft is all on the quarterbacks. I mean, there's Burrow is going to get taken number 1.
He's already told, so we know that.
So will it be Miami at 5 and the Chargers at 6, or will people move ahead of them? And where's New England factor in?
The guy from Oregon, Justin, whatever. I wrote about him the other.
Justin Herbert.
I think he'll be the 2nd guy off the board, and I think he'll go to Miami. I think Miami will be the team that gets him. He's a good quarterback if they do.
Yeah.
I think the Tua situation will be interesting because he could be like Angelo Esposito in this draft.
I was going to ask, who's the comparative in a previous draft, or maybe even in a future in the upcoming draft? Somebody who these teams can't. They're not going to get a look at them in the combine. They're not going to get. They did scout them throughout the year, but who could slip based on the fact that people couldn't do all their due diligence?
It's Tua because he got injured. He had the 3 surgeries, I think.
Yeah.
He had at least 2 surgeries, maybe 3. And the only look they got on him, there was wrist, there was
and hip
and nose or something. So they got to look at him a week ago or 2 weeks ago, working out for 12 seconds on video. That's it. Going going backwards, going forwards, throwing a pass. Like that's all they have to go on. And so he could be Angelo Esposito, and he could fall to the Patriots.
I would say, why do I think the Patriots are going to end up getting him and he'll be a superstar? Jesus.
That's it. That's all I got.
Nose injury, you don't hear that very often, like a nose injury.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of times these guys, they just reset their own noses. How many times do hockey players break their noses?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I
mean, all the bumps on their noses, right? I mean,
you're not trying to give away the injury. You're like, it's a mid-face injury, like
John Cusack and Say Anything.
Yeah,
right. Oh man, good movie though.
It is a good movie.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks, Russ, for making me feel a part of that NFL draft part.
Hey.
Thank everybody. Thanks so much for Pierre LaRouche today for following us. And
he was awesome.
He's on. Is he on Twitter? We got to find him.
I don't know if he is.
It's a personal account, so
but just it was so nice to have him. He's part of my Pittsburgh Penguins team, which is I'm now down to one team left, so I'm going to have everything ready to go in the next good day or so here. Actual season of fun. And
we should let Mike Rogers talk about the Hartford team though, because he has probably a good handle on that. He'll be on Monday.
How it was to play in a mall.
Yeah. That Hartford team, it was fun. LaRouche's comments on Hartford were really funny.
Yeah.
Remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. Please stay